Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, and it is episode number 71 for August the 12th, 2022. So, hope you guys have had a productive week. Walter has not. Yeah, Walter, let's see everything you've been working on this week.
Not much.
Walter hasn't been feeling well. So, no, he's been feeling a little bit dragged out, under the weather, sore throat, blah, 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 blah. Kind of a thing. Actually, the two of us aren't. We had a monkeypox shot on Monday, and we've actually had a little bit of a reaction to it.
Well, not only that, I think I actually was coming down with something at the time that I took the shot, which probably wasn't a good idea to do that. So,
But we still don't know what he was coming
So-
down with. I'd say apathy.
I've done a couple of COVID tests too, and
He's negative.
I've been negative on all of them, but I feel almost like I have had a cold. So,
And maybe that's exactly what you got, was a cold. They're saying that lots of people right now, because people aren't wearing masks anymore, and that are now getting colds because we haven't had them for a while because we were all wearing a mask. So whatever, I don't know. Hopefully you'll get better because it's driving me mental. He's so much fun to be around when he doesn't feel well. Yeah, sick people. Don't know how nurses do it. I really don't. So anyways, but on the other hand, I have been somewhat productive. So I've been working on a Halloween quilt. There's the pattern. If you saw Idiot Quilter this week, I went into a little bit more detail about this pattern, which was one that I bought from Fat Quarter Shop online. It was a downloadable pattern, and it kind of appealed to me because it had bats on it, which it shouldn't really appeal to me because I'm really not a fan of bats, not the living ones that get into your house. And if you saw Stephen and Walter last weekend, we did talk about that adventure. It's an ongoing adventure. We have bats all the time, it seems like. Anyways, I'm using my fabric here, and these are some of the pieces. There's a lot of little pieces in this, I have discovered. And if I get this thing to move over, yeah, it's working today on. So these are some of the bigger blocks that'll go into it. So you can see they're bat blocks as well. I think it's going to be kind of cute when it's done. But it's going to take me a little bit longer to get it done. And what else? Well, I interviewed Stephanie from Stephanie Stitches earlier this week. That went up on Tuesday. And she has a pattern that we talked about during that interview that she had designed, and I really kind of liked the pattern. So I went to her Etsy store, I purchased it, and remember all those fat quarters that Walter bought me the box of? I think this pattern called Mosaic Stars by Stephanie Stitches is going to look good in those fabrics. So I have them all picked out. They actually take 30 fat eighths to make all those stars that you see on the cover of the pattern. But what I'll do is I will have two stars that'll be the same. I'm just using 15 of the fat quarters in there. And the white will be my background, just the same as what Stephanie has in her pattern. And I'm going to use that gray, blacky, white kind of wild pattern as the border around it. I think that'll make it kind of stand out. And plus, I think the swirls on the blacky gray fabric go kind of good without taking over from the patterns in the fat quarters as well. So I have that all organized, but I'm not going to start it until I get the Halloween quilt done. So it's not going to get started for a while, but I will be sure to share pictures of it when I get to that point of it. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. And I put together a whole bunch of half square triangles from scraps of Christmas fabric left over from the last two Christmas quilts that I made. And my idea is I might be able to make another small lap quilt of my own design just using those half square triangles. They're in greens and in reds and that kind of thing. So I'll see. I'll have to play around with that. I don't know if I'll ever get to it. But you know, sometimes it's just kind of relaxing to clear your palette by just making something as simple as half square triangles. You know, you just do chain sewing and away you go. It's mindless. So that's what I've done there. And I also bought, and I'm going to show you a picture of this. I just have to get it up there. I bought an in the hoop design. Now, I saw this design a week or so ago on Designs by Juju. It's an embroidery thing and in the hoop. And I really liked it, but it was expensive for this. And I'm just getting it up here so you can see it. It's a tree skirt. And there's a picture of it there. And I guess you can, there's some other pictures you see. You get a little closer look here of the intricacy of this. And I think there's something like 42 hoopings go into this. And some more pictures of it, what it looks like. Here's one from the top down. So you have all of these blades that's in there, plus the borders are separate pieces as well. And so this is going to take some time to do, but I kind of liked it. But the reason I bought it was because they had it on sale. You can see it up here because this comes from the day that I bought it. It was on for half price, $25. That's US. So it cost me a little over $30 or something Canadian for it. So yeah, it's a bit pricey, but I think it'll look really cool when I get it done. Now, I don't know, I'm not going to necessarily do it in the colors they have there. I don't know what colors I'll use. I'll have to check my stock of fabrics and see. Although I do have some blue fabric that's Christmas that might look good in that, but I haven't decided that yet. I've just got the pattern. Who knows? It may not be ready for this Christmas. Maybe next Christmas. So those are things I've been working on. And if you saw the Idiot Quilter this week, I talked about a Discourse server that I have joined. Discourse, from what I can gather, is basically an alternative to Facebook. People can set up groups, specialized groups in this Discourse server, and just like Facebook, you can talk about things, but it's more organized than Facebook. It has categories and things like that. And Sean, the guy who sews that I interviewed back a couple of months ago, he set this up, and he talked about it on one of his YouTube channels recently. So I thought I'd give it a try, and I'm really quite liking it. It's a really good environment, and so I have put a link to it in the show notes. If you're interested, anybody can join up with this group. It's called Quilters Co-op, and it's a great source of information and general chit chat, and it even has facilities for doing video and streaming in it as well, which I suspect that's how Sean does his Saturday lives. When he does those, even though they come up on YouTube, I think he goes through this Discourse server. I'm not sure what the advantage of that is by doing it, but I'll have to ask him more about that. But anyways, check it out. I've got the link below, and you can download the app. It'll work on your phone. It'll work on your iPad. Well, I'm talking about iOS devices. I'm not sure. I think it'll work on Androids too. I think there's one for that, but it'll work on your computer as well. And you don't have to actually go into your browser if you download the app. You can go through the browser, but if you download the app, it's free and installed to your computer. You can just click on that and you'll go right into it. And yeah, so I think it's worth checking out. I'm kind of liking it. So yeah. And so today we thought, oh, before I get to today, we're having a pop-up sew and craft day tomorrow, Saturday, August the 13th, 2022. In case this is seen later in the future somewhere down in the 24th century. And it starts at 8 a.m. Eastern time, my time. But of course, you don't have to be there right at the beginning. You can come in and go as you please. And we're just getting together and doing what we do, whatever we want to do, and have some discussion and stuff. There was a possibility that we were going to go to a sew day that is being held by Brendan, who's the guy that Walter takes on online Zoom classes with. He was holding it at a hall in our area, but Walter's not feeling up to it. And yeah, you gotta lug all your stuff, and it was only going from 10 in the morning to about 4 in the afternoon because the hall's being used that night for another event. So that's why I didn't put out the announcement about the pop-up sew day until I knew for sure, because I was going to go too. if he was going to go. But he decided that he's not up to that, so we're not going to go. And so do pop-up sew day instead. So yay. So yep, that's tomorrow. 8 a.m. is when I open the doors to it, but come whenever you wish. And the link for that is in the show notes below. And those of you on my mailing list, I sent it out earlier today, the Zoom link for it as well. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about you. Yes, you, not him, you. Well, we could talk about you, but what's there to say?
Okay.
It's just you. So I went through some of the more recent comments on several of the So Chatty videos that we've done and a few Idiot Quilter ones, and I thought these would be something for us, between the two of us, to maybe put our 2 cents worth in. When people write comments, and I do appreciate it when you write comments and everything, I don't always respond to them for a couple of reasons. One, they're just a general comment that you've made, and really there's nothing for me to really respond to or for us to respond to. Or sometimes it's not really a question, it's just a comment that you're sharing for all to see. So that's great too. If it is a direct question, then I will try to answer those. But some of these, though, also involve a more lengthy explanation. And I'll be honest, when it comes to sitting there and typing out a whole book as an answer to a question, I don't want to. It's too much effort. So I thought we'd handle some of these more or less as clarification in some cases, other cases, additional information or whatever. So first of all, on last week's, I was talking about pattern storage. And I asked for people's, that was from my Idiot Quilter 179. And I was asking for how people organize their patterns, if they do, because I have hundreds of patterns. I'm a pattern slut. You probably don't have that many patterns,
No,
do you?
I don't.
Because you have the same old, same old. So how do you organize your patterns?
I just have a bunch of bags that I have my patterns in, and I have a storage box that I put them in. So I don't have that many patterns, so I can leaf through them fairly easily.
Yeah. Whereas I have a lot of patterns, and I did keep them in a basket. They're in a file drawer in a basket, and the basket's sort of subdivided by, table runners, completed projects, bags, things like that. Christmas, whatever. And then in Idiot Quilter, I was talking about that I was thinking of making these little full plastic magazine holders, but the size that would hold patterns, because I have a few of those already on my bookshelf, and I thought that would be a cool idea, and then I could label them on the edge, and this is like Easter patterns, Christmas patterns, bag patterns, stuff like that.
Yeah, like I put on my outside of my bag, I write what the pattern is.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
So when you say bag, what do you mean bag?
Like a big Ziploc bag.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And I can see through it too. So I can say,
Oh,
like I can say it's like the Gosling shirt or whatever, and I'll say it's size XL or something like that, or whatever.
no, that's probably a good idea to put that. And what? So your pattern pieces that you use to cut out, if they
Yeah,
go in
they're
there too?
all going there, as well as the description of the how to put it together.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. But how many of those do you have now?
I don't know, probably
3?
about 10,
Oh.
15 maybe.
Oh, amateur. But yeah, so anyways, I'm not doing this thing with the 3D printer making them, because each one takes a day, and I would be printing until next year. And I figured, is it really worth it? Because quite frankly, I mean, ideally I was looking for like even a program where I could scan in the barcode of some of the commercial ones, and it would put a picture of it and everything up, because it was going by the ISBN number and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, a few people suggested a couple of inventory management type programs you can get, but none of them, they were still effort. I was looking for something that would be quick
I
and
know
dirty.
some people talk about using like if they have a pole that they can hang stuff on and stuff like that, they put it in bags and then hang it on
Yeah,
the pole, and then they have little dividers in between, like say shirt patterns and suit patterns
yeah.
and stuff like
Well,
that.
I've seen that too for quilting patterns. In fact, somebody suggested that's what they did, or I saw it online or something. Problem is, Where would I hang something like that?
Yeah, well, for us,
Yeah.
we don't
It
really
does,
have
I don't really
that.
have the space for that. And I don't know if I really like that idea either, because then you're, I don't know, you might as well just have them in a filing cabinet and leaf through.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing I was going to do. I was going to put them in something to hold them in the filing cabinet, but I could get two like side by side and go through. And
Well, that's good for you because your patterns are small,
yeah, that's,
right?
yeah.
Whereas my patterns, if I have the cutouts for them and stuff like that, can be kind of large.
Yeah,
So
I know. I don't have to worry about cutout pieces usually, or maybe some applique pieces here and there, but nothing major for it. But then I got to think, this is what I was really thinking about though. Okay, I could spend time, I love to organize. Okay, I always have, and I've always liked to make lists and databases and stuff like that. And it would be easy enough. I could set up a spreadsheet or even a simple table, and I could go through all the patterns and put in their title, the pattern designer, the company I got it from, what it cost, this kind of stuff. For what purpose?
yeah, well, see, the other thing I have is a lot of my patterns are PDF patterns, right?
Mhm.
I have some hard copy patterns, but a lot of my patterns are PDF patterns, and I just keep them on my computer,
Yeah, well, I do
right?
that too, because a lot of my patterns are PDF as well. And they're organized a little bit, but not that great on my computer. But what I got thinking about was this. When I have done a pattern, I am done. I don't make the same pattern twice. That's not to say that I wouldn't maybe down the road, but to date, no, it's a one-off for me in most cases. Now there have been an occasion where I've made more than one of a table runner type of pattern, but they're simpler. But as far as quilts are concerned, I make one, and that's it. So if I spend all this time setting up a database or a filing system and that for these patterns, to what purpose does that serve me? It doesn't. It's not like someone's going to come to me and go, "Oh, I was looking for a pattern on such and such a thing and blah, 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 blah." And I go, "Just a second, let me check the database and do a search." "Oh, yeah, here you go," kind of a thing. No, that really doesn't happen. Um, at least not for me. So I thought, for all the time I would spend in doing all of that, I could be using that time for something more productive. So I have put that on hold. They are sitting in a basket in my filing cabinet, except the ones that I want to do coming up. Those I have in a separate area with that. So, but Lorraine Gunn, or not Lorraine Gunn, it was Nancy B. She says, I used one of those accordion file storage boxes. I put them according to the designer. I also use one for ruler storage. There's a place for info and most rulers fit in there. They are protected and easy to find. So that's not a bad idea, the accordion one, because it'll open up, you can see inside and that kind of thing. I didn't think about that for ruler storage.
So you're basically talking about little short rulers that you use
Yeah,
for,
you wouldn't
yeah,
be able to get your 24-inch in one of
yeah.
those. No. So, but there are specialty rulers or even specialty templates that you buy that would kind of fit in one of those as well. So that's an idea, not one that I had thought of. But I think I'm going to leave that whole thing now. I've rethought the whole thing, and I don't think I'm going to do anything with them more than I do now with it. But I do thank the people. There were other suggestions too that people had as well, and I thank you for those suggestions because they'll be helpful for other people who see those comments as well. So moving on. In one video on So Chatty, we were showing some fabrics and I referred to them as old lady fabrics. And someone took offense to that. And it was a bit of a joke. And I think we get a little bit too politically correct at times. I mean, come on, old lady. Maybe I should have said old man fabrics.
Maybe
I
you
don't know.
should have said vintage
Maybe
fabrics.
I should have said vintage fabrics. I didn't realize that old lady fabrics was no longer politically correct to say. So I got corrected by some person.
Or heirloom
Or
fabrics.
heirloom, whatever. Or I could have just called them ugly because they were, but whatever. But
Well, yeah, when you call them old lady fabrics, they're not really to your taste, are they?
no, they're not. So yes, I was being derogatory. I guess I was thinking of fabrics that your grandmother might have used when, I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't matter what I say about it. I've got my foot in my mouth. So, one person wrote, "Hello, thank you so much for sharing. I love to hear you both natter away. You really make my day." I could take offense to the term natter. I don't really consider what we're doing as nattering. I feel it's a sharing of ideas and information, but whatever. I'm being funny here. Okay, natter we will. Your old lady fabrics, my friends and I call Nana fabrics. I thought that was kind of unique. Uh, like Nana fabrics,
Some people call their grandmother Nana.
Nana. Yeah, I know. But that's what I mean. I thought, well, okay. So, in a sense, that terminology could be taken in several ways, but it's maybe
Like
a little
old
more,
lady.
yeah, like, but maybe a little bit more polite than calling them old lady fabrics, okay, kind of a thing. So, yeah, Nana fabrics. That's good. Um, And then she also went on, this had nothing to do with old lady fabrics, sorry, Nana fabrics, had to do with when you were talking about backing fabrics. I've gotten some lovely ones from New Text Fabrics. I think they're based in New Zealand, but sell all over the world. I've just bought some cracking navy backing fabric with a small pattern on it from them. So, yeah, I guess in that video as well, I was talking about getting wide back fabrics and how there seems to be a limited selection, at least in the quilt stores here in my area. Online, there's more, but then you have to pay the shipping, right? And all of that too. So, whatever. But I don't know. New Zealand, well, shipping might be a bit pricey from that, but this individual may be from New Zealand or Australia, where whatever. But that was a nice source. I'd never heard of this Nutex Fabrics. I may have to look them up and see what they're all about. But that does bring up another point too, talking about ordering from other countries and stuff. Shipping costs and costs of ordering from the States. Okay, I don't want anybody to take offense to this, but I swear Americans do not understand about currency exchange and the difference in it all. Because I have had so many people, and they're being helpful. I understand that. Okay, I'm not anything against them about this, but they will tell me about, I will say something about something being expensive here, and they say, oh, well, they just picked up such and such someplace in the United States, and it only cost them this much per yard or whatever, and shipping was only. Uh-huh. Yeah, I understand that. But what they're not getting, what some people and I don't understand why they're not getting this. Something coming from the United States to us becomes much more expensive. So a good deal in the States, let's say, I did a little example here. Let's say a yard of fabric in US dollars was $16 US, okay? Well, I worked it out the other day on the conversion for the currency, and that worked out to over $20 a yard Canadian. So that's what's average price is right now for fabric, for a meter of fabric, which is 3 inches longer, bigger than a yard here in Canada. So why would I order it from the States unless it was something that was really I could not get here at all and I really wanted it. And then on top of that, we still have to pay for shipping. And the shipping that these companies have in the States, rightly so, is in American dollars, not in
Yeah,
Canadian.
not only that, we often have to pay duties on top
Yeah,
of that.
and that's another thing. So, for example, let's say I ordered $100 worth of fabric from someplace, like say from the Fat Quarter shop or wherever in the States. And let's say a reasonable shipping from the US was $20 US. That's $120 US, but by the time I do the exchange, that's $153 Canadian. So it's an extra, basically an extra 50 bucks. It's almost 50% more, including the shipping. But then, as Walter said, we might also get nailed for customs.
Which is another 13%.
Yeah, on top of it. So it makes the price, it has to be something you really, really can't get here in Canada and you really, really, really want. but I appreciate it when Americans put me on online to say, check this store out because they've
So
got this fabric, and then I
so
can make a
your
decision.
$100 fabric ends up costing us $172 Canadian
Yeah,
if we include duties and everything
yeah,
else.
with it. Now, sometimes you don't end up paying duty.
Yeah, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the stores have them included, but it still like gets added onto the price.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, if we order from Missouri Star or something like that, they charge us duties up front, so we still have to pay that,
yeah.
right? So it ends up costing us quite a bit more money to get it here in Canada. There, and I've heard like in some cases, I've heard people make off the cuff comments that says, "Oh well, the Canadian dollar is the same price, same as the American dollar."
No.
No, we pay about a dollar 30 cents more on the dollar for every US dollar that we spend.
So in
So
other words, for every one US dollar, it costs us $1.30 in Canadian money.
yeah,
Like that's how it works out. So that adds up. So it's a third more in
yeah.
a sense with it. But I don't understand why Americans don't get that. I think Americans are spoiled because the United States has over 330 million people in it. It's probably higher than that. We have approximately 1/10 the population. We have about 33, 34 million Canadians. Okay. Your consumer base, your selection is so much greater than ours is. And as such, you have competition, a lot more competition, which means that places want your money in the States. So they will slash prices, they will have great sales and things like that. So you can shop around. Whereas for us, we don't have that at all. And I know that might be a concept that's really foreign to most Americans because they don't live here. Okay. Um, but it's extremely expensive. I've had people say to me, well, they'd like to buy some of the things that I make that I show from me. But I tell them, I can't afford to ship it to you. It would cost me way too much money. Or if they were going to pay for the shipping, it's going to cost them way too much. Well, actually, it would cost them a little less. And this is the other thing. I don't understand why more Americans aren't buying from our quilt stores in Canada because your dollar, like, you're going to get more bang for your buck with it on both shipping
Well, that's
and fabric.
assuming that their fabric, they can't get their fabric at a cheaper price
Well,
than
yeah,
the
yeah.
equivalent,
Yeah,
right?
well,
So,
true. If it was something here, but but anyways, I hear this all the time. And it's all said to me in good faith. Like I know it's like,
well, see, the thing is that look at our dollar and their dollar, and a lot of people seem to think that the amount because it's called a dollar,
yeah,
right? It's the same. So then if we say that fabric costs $21 or something, then they're thinking American dollars, not Canadian
yeah,
dollars, right? So if you were to go to a Canadian store and look at it and say, "Oh wow, that's $21," that's like I can get a lot cheaper in America at $16 or whatever. But in actual fact, it's the same
yeah. Well,
price.
they need to do the conversion, and that would bring it down more in their money,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Like you'd have to figure it out. It does get very, very confusing. There's no two ways about it. But as Canadians, I think we're very conscious of ordering things across from the on the other side of the border because we're just used
Yeah,
to
and
the fact
I've
that
even heard people say in the US that the British pound is the same as the US dollar, and it's not either.
it's not.
It's
Walter has a conversion program out. Do you know how to use it?
yeah, the 1 British pound is geez, 1 British pound is $1.21 US. So
Yeah.
that's not exactly at par.
No, that's not par. We have not been at par with the American dollar in how many years? When was the last time we were
Probably
actually
around year 2000 that we were pretty close
close to
to,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. And by the looks of things, we're not going to be close to that anytime soon again. So anyways, that's just, not complaining or bitching at you about it. Just that is the economic reality of being a Canadian and trying to order stuff from the States. So speaking of pricing, um, I was talking in one episode on So Chatty about pricing a quilt. How do you figure it out? And if you remember, someone said 6 cents um, a square inch, and then we had the whole discussion about, well, no, that's not really. And then that person clarified. They wrote me another message saying, no, that was what a quilt guild said. If you put it in their quilt store, that's how they figured out the price, and that would be for a quilt that basically was a charity quilt or something like that, whatever you're making. So we had several people comment on this. One person said, selling your handicrafts are extremely difficult and disappointing to the crafter. I have membership to a state organization that helps us learn how to price our products and how to sell them. And then they also went on to talk about featherweights, because we were talking about featherweights, and I said, that I went to that garage sale at Ultimate Sewing here, and they had a featherweight for $500, and I was tempted, but then I thought better of it. And then other people told me, well, they thought that that was actually too much money for it, and others said, well, it depended on the age of the machine and condition and things like that. So this person said, featherweights are great if you're traveling to an in-person classes. My friends had them. A couple had their machines pimped out, custom repainted. These machines are not priced as antiques because Singer mass produced them. So then somebody else said that they paid 850 Australian dollars for a fully restored featherweight that was made in 1947. They say they're a lovely machine. If you're interested in the history and collectibles that will only increase in value, it would be a good price. I imagine, knowing you, says that you likely wouldn't use it because you like your modern machines. So that's probably true. It would have been an impulse buy if I'd bought it, and I probably would have regretted it afterwards. It's just that you hear everybody talk about featherweights, right? And you kind of feel like you're missing out on it if you don't own one. But yeah, the price is really depend on how old it is, the condition it is in, and even serial number. Somebody told me, I don't know if I copied that message out, but there was a series of numbers. Yeah. One here said the price of a featherweight depends on the year of the manufacturing. Some years are more collectible than others. You can check the year by the serial number. Also depends on whether it is a 221 or a 222. So I don't know if that's the model numbers on featherweights or whatever. I don't know enough about featherweights. But again, it's the pricing of these kind of things. And I'm not an antique collector, so I'm not buying a featherweight because it would sit on a shelf. And what's the point? Although a lot of people did really feel that $500 for that particular featherweight was out of range.
And then we may go back to the exchange rate, because when you say
I'm
$500,
talking Canadian,
which is more like $400 American. So
yeah. And somebody said that they got one in California for $350, and that was US dollars. So again, that almost works out to almost $500. And so I don't know. I have no idea. But anyways, people gave me a lot of suggestions with that. Somebody else said about the quilt that I was showing, the long tall quilt, the one with all the winter quilt. I call it the winter quilt that I made. And I was trying to figure out what you would charge for that. They said the long tall quilt would cost about $170 in supplies in the US, and then $250 for long arm service. That is $420 without labor. I think $800 US is an appropriate price for the quilt. So yeah, as long as you get that kind of money for it, because that would be over $1,000 Canadian for it, which I do not disagree with at all. I do not disagree with that. And then about Walter shirts, the person who was talking about buying the featherweight, the 1947 featherweight, also said, Walter, I would easily pay $150 Australian for the shirt, for your shirts. They're lovely. Well, the Aussie dollar and the Canadian dollar are very much close to being almost the same. which is kind of nice when you go to Australia, at least if you're Canadian, because you don't have to do much of a conversion. In fact, in the last time we were in Australia, I think we were getting a couple of cents more on the Canadian dollar from the Aussie. You're looking that one up right now.
Mm. Okay, we might go. Okay, I lost it.
Well, you lost a long time ago, but we're looking up a price right now.
Yeah, I know, no, but I can't find the Australian dollars.
Oh, well, anyways, it's about par. He'll play with this until he finds it. So, anyways, yeah, $150 for one of Walter's shirts, like the one he's wearing today. Actually, this is one of his shirts as well.
Yeah, it's $1 Canadian is 110 Australian, so 90 cents Australian is $1 Canadian.
So for us, it's a better bargain. But would it be for the Americans? It must be even better.
You know.
One
Aussie dollar is 0.71 cents American.
71 cents.
Yeah.
Holy, geez, people. I don't know what they charge for shipping to come all the way from Australia to the United States, but you might want to jump on that bandwagon. And I love Aussie fabrics. So, might be something there. 71 cents for a $1 American dollar. That's damn good. Really. Might consider it. Okay, so
basically it takes 71 cents American to buy one Aussie dollar.
Yeah, one Aussie dollar. So I mean, bargain, really. I mean, depending. Should do a little research in that, just out of curiosity, see it with the Canadian dollar. Like find a distributor in Australia and see what that's like. Okay, so one thing that I got lots of comments about when I've done some videos showing me using the Lucy and using the Quilt Path, the computerized software for it, is a lot of people have an idea, and they're usually people who don't own a long arm. So of course, what else would you think? That the computerized software is set it and forget it. That you just, once you get it all set up, it just away it goes, does your whole quilt. You can walk away and come back in a couple hours and your quilt's all done. That would be nice. That would be very nice, but that's not how they work. The computerized program, first of all, does not wind your quilt automatically. And I don't know of any computerized software for any quilting machine that does that.
I suppose you might get that idea from someplace like, what's it, the lady out
in the backyard,
you know, the ones that do all the strip cutting and stuff like that, that's out in the west coast that you always watch all the time,
on the west coast
of US in
Jordan Fabrics.
Fabrics,
okay, yeah. Boy, I had to figure that one out.
Okay, anyway, so Jordan Fabrics makes it sort of look like she sets it and then just walks away.
She walks away. No, that just means that she's not videoing it all the way through. No, essentially what happens is you have to set it all up and then away it goes. But I will tell you this, with any piece of technology, whether it's computerized quilting, whether it's your embroidery machine, your toaster oven, whatever, technology, as soon as you turn your back on it, will not perform what it's supposed to do. Turn your back on your coffee maker one day, I dare you. You may have your cup overfloweth, whatever, or it'll sputter out, or whatever. They have a mind of their own. I swear it's a conspiracy. The robots are taking over. With a quilting machine, and with the software that goes with it, what happens is once you have it all set up, yes, it'll travel across your quilt, do all the stitches, but your long arm machine has only so much of a throat depth, just like on your sewing machine. And depending on what machine you have bought, like mine has a 26-inch throat, which means that technically it can handle 26 inches of width of fabric.
Including your rolls and
but
stuff
yeah,
like
but it decreases as you roll the quilt a little bit as well. But when the computerized software does its thing, it basically, you put in certain factors into it when you set it up, so it knows how long your quilt is, the overall length. It calculates in how many rows or passes it can get in the throat length that you have, and then it will stop and it will set up a marker where it'll show you where you need to adjust your quilt, like roll your quilt up to the neck for the next stage. Now, on my particular machine, I have a powered winder, which means I can stand on a foot pedal and it will wind the quilt around to the next spot. I mean, but I still have to do it manually in the sense that I have to watch for where that mark is so I know exactly where to stop the machine, so that when it does like an edge to edge design, it's going to pick up and not have a big gap between rows of quilting. And this computerized software helps you with that. But it does not wind the quilt ahead. It would be really nice if it did. If you could just set it and forget it. But you can't. So how long it takes to fill in that space it has depends on the design.
Yeah, and how many rows you eventually do
Yeah,
depends on how long your quilt is, right?
yeah. So that's the other thing that people think. Oh, wow, it must be a heck of a lot faster than doing it with your domestic sewing machine or something like that. Well, yes, it is in some ways, but it still takes hours. That winter quilt that I did, or the long tall one as the pattern's actually called, but I called the winter quilt. That one took me over 6.5 hours to quilt. And I wasn't taking breaks with that, okay? It took 6.5 hours to quilt. Was I standing over it all that time? Pretty much. Pretty much. I was. Because you can have thread breaks. You run out of bobbin thread. One bobbin in those machines will not do an entire quilt. In fact, on that one, I think I went through 4 full bobbins to finish it. And I did have a thread break. And I had to do some things to compensate for that, to get things back in line with it. So they are wonderful machines, but a lot of people think because they're computerized, they're going to do it all for you. You just put a couple of buttons and away it goes. No, no. There's also setup. I mean, you have to sandwich your quilt still on a long arm, just like you would if you were doing it on a domestic machine. Mind you, it's easier. You don't have to be down on your hands and knees on a floor and pinning things and what like that. But that takes a little time. For me to layer a regular size quilt on that takes me probably 45 minutes to an hour, maybe, depending. Um, Maybe not quite that long now. I'm used to it. I can do it a lot faster now. But yeah, so all these things add up. So you might say, well, then what's the point? Well, it depends. Are you getting a long arm machine with a computerized program on it because you want to zip through quilts? You think it's going to be faster? That's not the reason to get one, in my opinion. No, you're getting a long arm because you want to long arm. Okay, whether you do it with the computerized software or you do it with a pantograph or whether you do free motion, you're getting it because it's a whole lot easier, less strain on your body, easier to manipulate the fabric under the needle and everything. That's why you get a long arm. Okay, I don't think you get a long arm because you're going to save time, because you don't really save time. You just save wear and tear on your shoulders and everything else, and frustration. Well, not all frustration. So, anyways, I just wanted to say that because I've had many people write comments when I've shown the Lucy, and especially about the computerized software, thinking that, oh my God, it's set it and forget it. Wish it was. Maybe it will be someday. Who knows? I don't know. They probably could make it so it could, because
Yeah,
it would just be the question of tapping into the motor that is already on the
yeah.
system.
That's
And
coming. That'll be the next
I'm
thing.
pretty sure that will come eventually with it. I'll be first in line for that one. Yeah. Okay, so another thing with technology is hoops for quilting. One person wrote, because I had written that Walter had, or I had put on one of the Idiot Quilter that Walter had bought me for my birthday, another hoop for my embroidery machine, and it's one that doesn't come with, and it was called the R28 B hoop. And I explained that that's sort of an in-between size between the absolute largest hoop and the next one that's slightly smaller than that. And somebody asked, can I ask you why you need the RE28B hoop? I'm a new embroiderer and would like to know if this is something I need to purchase. Thanks. First of all, no, you do not need to purchase it. Why then do I have it? And why do I want one? Because it's just a hoop size that is very good when you're doing in the hoop. Like I showed you that skirt, okay? That skirt actually takes an RE28 hoop. Now, it comes in multiple sizes, so I could use some of my other hoops for it
Yeah, like you
instead.
could also, you just because it calls for an
Yeah,
RE28, you can use a bigger hoop.
yeah, I could use the
The only thing
36.
about using a bigger hoop is then you end up having to use more stabilizers or
There's
whatever.
more waste.
They're more weight. And the
And
other thing is that depending on where you have your machine located and that, the larger hoop requires a bigger depth of space
yeah,
for you to use
you have to
the
have more clearance around your machine
right.
for it.
So it is handy. A lot of the embroidery projects that are on these machines call for certain size hoops, so it's nice to have a hoop that is happens to fall into that size.
Yeah.
So
Also, the larger the hoop, the more chance you have of in the middle of your embroidery design, depending on how you've stabilized it and set it all up, you can pop, which means that your hoop comes apart. And if that happens, all kinds of hell is unleashed. I mean, thread gets tangled up. If it pulls the design, your fabric, whatever, out of the hoop, you're never going to get it lined up again with that. And sometimes embroidery machines like to do that just in the last 5 minutes of your project, which makes you want to take your whole machine and put it in the middle of the highway and let cars run over it.
yeah, what happened was Janome, when they produced the 500E machines, the embroidery machines, their largest hoop was the R28B hoop, right? And they gave you several hoops
They were smaller.
that were smaller, right? When they produced the Janome 550E machine, which is the one above the 500E, they stopped using the R28E hooper. They stopped including it in with the machine and gave you a larger hoop instead. So you had a bigger jump from the smaller hoops to the larger hoop, right? So it was optional for you to buy the RE28E hoop, and that's why we got that one. Is just that it was an additional hoop and an additional option for you to use different size hoops.
Yeah.
That's all. You don't really need it.
No, you can get along without it, and I was getting along without it for quite a while, although I was using Walters um, for certain projects. Um, but yeah, so do you need it? No,
No.
but
If you do a lot of embroidery, it's kind of a nice to
yeah,
have.
it is something that
But
you will probably eventually want to get, especially for your larger projects, the in the hoop projects, especially because it just gives you a little bit more of an option.
that's really only if you have like if you purchased a 550 Janome 550E machine as opposed to a 500E machine.
Yeah, yeah, with it. So yeah, but these are things you'll learn if you're not into embroidery, machine embroidery right now, but you're thinking about getting into it. This is something you will learn. It'll suit whatever you make. You may only do little tiny projects. You're not interested in the hoop projects. I like big projects. So
Yeah.
for me, this hoop is a necessity for me, but maybe not for you.
Yeah.
Now, different topic here, and it has to do with sexism in quilting. And this comment, this person said, thank you for using the term sewer instead of sewist. Some of the terminology in sewing and floss tube videos is irritating, especially all the acronyms. Ugh. I enjoy making shirts for my husband because I can add piping, contrasting colors, yokes, and plackets, etc., which he really loves, and I can make them long enough for him. Walter, I just received the Thread Theory pants pattern this week, so now I can make him pants too. Another great, okay. But the point of this one is, the reason I picked this one out is because of the term sewist as opposed to sewer, or an older term, seamstress and tailor. In the sewing community now, I think sewist is the most popular term. Sewer, I'm not sure why you will hear people say sewer, and really that's not really necessarily sexist. But seamstress and tailor are, and they're not even equal terms. Like, not even for the fact that a seamstress refers to a female, tailor refers to a male. In back 100 years ago or something like that, the term seamstress meant, yeah, that's a woman, and it suggested subservience. Because what seamstress usually was somebody who basically sewed stuff together for somebody else. You know, they weren't necessarily even given the terminology of being a dressmaker. A seamstress was grunt work. Tailor, on the other hand, was usually left to men. And because they were designing clothing or making clothing that were suits, business suits, and things like that, there seemed to be an inequity between these terms, between the type of sewing. When a woman said she sewed, people immediately thought of domestic chores. Well, that's a woman's place to sew. When you said tailor, ooh, this was a profession. This was a man's world. It was a business. Okay. And yes, that's the way things were 100 years ago or even 50
Well, I
years
don't know.
ago.
I always thought seamstress was sort of as well, only it made it sort of sound more like it was a woman that designed clothing or that sewed clothing, sewed
I
female
think
clothing.
I think when you come into the modern era, I think the term seamstress, when there was no longer indentured servants and things like
Right.
that, I think the term did change and did become less derogatory. But I'm talking Victorian
Oh, okay.
age, Edwardian age, the 1920s. I think anybody who was a seamstress, that was considered piecework
Mhm.
kind of a thing. Um, at least that's the way when I read books from those eras, and that's the way they refer to them. They don't really put them up on a pedestal.
No, okay.
And I've read books where they'll use the term seamstress and dressmaker, and the characters that are in that. The seamstress is doing the grunt work for the dressmaker.
Oh, I
The
see.
dressmaker may have her own business, her own shop, you know, designs them, but the person who's putting the stuff together, the grunt work.
I've never had a problem though with sewist if somebody called me a sewist.
Well, no, I don't think anybody has a
Okay,
problem with sewist. I think it's the word sewer. Because I have heard some people say no, they don't like the word sewer, and I'm not sure why. Maybe just because of the sound of it.
It's sort of like sewer.
Sewer, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Or you're sew because you're sewing. I don't know. Sewist is what they are. But if you think about it too, possibly the word sewist maybe removes a little bit of the sexism sound.
Yeah.
Like it's an ist word, you know, like I don't know. Sometimes again, maybe people get too uptight with that. But in the quilting world, okay, and this is one that's a pet peeve for me, and I know it's a pet peeve for some other males who are quilters. You walk into a room where there's a lot of ladies working on quilts, and then someone says up, "Oh, ladies, can I just show you this?" Excuse me, I am not a lady. And in fact, in some cases, I've heard a few women say, "I'm no lady either." So kind of a thing. The proper term today, the politically correct term, is to encompass everybody, to be inclusive, is quilter. Because a quilter, the word quilter, does not have a sex attached to it. Now, to quilt does have still some, for those who are uneducated about the term, they may immediately think of women as quilting. Because, I mean, after all, let's face it, through history, the majority of people who quilted were women. It was considered a woman's thing. But that was like when they were making quilts for the home, you know, utility quilts, although they made a lot of beautiful quilts too, like quilts for display. But still, that was woman's work, not a man. A man didn't quilt. Well, that's all changed, hasn't it? Over the years and fairly recently as well. Like men are no longer in the closet that are quilting or knitting or crocheting. So the term quilter is better. And in fact, when I used to belong to a guild, this happened all the time because I was the only man. Someone would get up and say, and they didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't because they were trying to insult me or something. It was just, you know, the way it was. It says, "Ladies," and I go, "Hello, man here." And then one person got up one time and said, I think we need to refer to everybody in here as quilters. And I appreciate it that, because what that person was saying is we need to be more inclusive, and we have a habit, we need to break it. And so it's true, and that works with other things too. So I think like the word sewist, for example, if you say that person is a sewist, you are not saying, you know, they're a male or a female necessarily. It's inclusive. It means anybody can be a sewist. It doesn't matter about your sex, kind of a thing. So anyways, those were just some comments that got me thinking about other things and stuff. To it, I'm always thinking about things. When you write your comments, we think about what you have said. Um,
Yeah, and then also, if you do write a comment, kind of be a little bit more specific as to what you're talking about.
we have a
Because
pet peeve, okay? Some people, I think, they jump right into the middle of a topic, and we don't know what you're talking about. And you're referring to probably something that was made, a comment that we have made during one of the videos. But to be honest, we don't remember what we said. You know, once this goes out there, we don't look at it again, kind of a thing. And if a comment comes in weeks later, I have to think about it. What are they asking me about? And I'm trying to guess. And sometimes there's not enough detail in the comment for me to even figure out what you mean. And so that is one way for sure that if you were expecting a response, you won't get one because I don't know what to respond to, or we don't know what to respond to with it as well. So a word of advice: when you write your comments, and we enjoy them, please be as detailed as you possibly can. Give us a reference point. Like, for example, in this video, you were talking about this, this, and this, and then make your question or make your comment or something like that. It'll put it in context, is what I'm saying. And we will understand it better. And also, if we do write a comment back in response for it, we don't go off on a wrong tangent, you know?
because we can't necessarily read your mind as to what you're talking about at the time that you're making the comment.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes communication channels a little clearer for us and for you too, as well. So anyways, that was what we wanted to talk a little bit about today. Still looking for ideas for topics as well, or what would you like to talk about, want to have us talk about on here? Please don't be shy, put them in the comments, given what we just said about context. Okay, give us the more detail, the better. We can run with it. So yeah, anything more you want to bring up, talk about, say, whatever?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well then that's it. That's us for today. So hope you have a good week. Remember, pop-up sew day is tomorrow, Saturday, August the 13th, starting at 8 a.m. in the morning. Come and go as you please. Work on whatever you want. Hope to see many of you there to keep us company with it all. So, okay, have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye.